favorites, Titus and there.
Great game. 50 seconds to go. Hurts. Deep shot. Hauled in, Devontae.
Sure.
And before the press conferences even start. I mean, we could talk for 45 minutes just about how atrocious the defense is.
Doing? He's just picking the big guys. Jordan Mailata, he's huge. He'll be good later on. Josh Sweat, he's tall as hell and strong. Let's get him. We'll figure him out. It's working.
Hello?
Here.
Can you hear me? Sorry, my thing went dead for a second there. My whole thing, I don't know what happened there. Hey, welcome to Trending in the AM right here on DSM Media. We're live, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube. Actually, I forgot to do it, so hold on. Sound effect time.
Are you ready?
Are you ready?
There we go. See, now we're ready to begin. Sorry, everything went black on my screen for a second. I don't know what the hell happened there. Welcome to Trending in the AM right here on DSM Media Live, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube. You know the drill. Get into the show. Get over to YouTube for your comments to be heard. But make sure, more importantly, you are following us on all social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, wherever you're watching the show. Make sure you hit follow, subscribe. We're live as always, and we're brought to you by Manscaped, the leader in men's grooming products, the GOAT and below the waist maintenance. Check them out, manscaped.com. Use promo code TRENDING at checkout. Get you 20% off and free shipping. Yes, I am ready, Drew, because today's one of my favorite days of the year. Got my Festivus poll here. It's Festivus for the rest of us, everybody. I got to go over what Festivus is, supposedly, because Jason's not a huge Seinfeld fan, but we're going to go over Festivus a little bit today. And we are going to air our grievances and have some feats of strength on the air here. Jason, good morning.
Good morning, brother.
So, as always, got your caffeine kick ready to go for today?
I do. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Looking forward to being back. You know, you had a day off, so
I had a day off.
And I had a day off.
You had a day off, so we're back together. Butch Cassidy and Sundance back together in the saddle. Is that a relevant reference, or is that too old for most people that watch this show?
The old people will understand.
Yeah, the old people. We're the only old people. What's up, Adam? Thanks for checking in, brother. All right, so today is Festivus, the Festivus for the rest of us. So, Jason, there was a Seinfeld episode about Festivus. It's a real, actual, legit holiday. But Seinfeld made it famous by doing a whole episode around Kramer and George Costanza's father and Festivus. And basically Festivus for the rest of us. You know, you don't have a Christmas tree. You have a metal pole. Here's my metal pole. I always have it out on Festivus. I will bring that to the pizza shop today and have it out at the pizza shop as well. And there's two key things with Festivus. One, when you sit down at the dinner table, you are legally allowed to air your grievances with every single person at the table. Say whatever you want, and it cannot be held against you, even though it absolutely will be held against you for the rest of your time. So that's the airing of the grievances. And then after the meal, after the feast at Festivus, you close the day out with the Feats of Strength. And what the Feats of Strength is, you know, at Festivus is basically the head of the household has to be pinned to the ground or Festivus doesn't end. And it can get a little rowdy. It can get a little out of hand. Lots of stuff can happen while you're trying to fight after eating dinner and drinking and stuff like that. But that's what it is. What's that, Jason?
I have a question.
I'll give you an answer.
Who's going to be pinning you down at the end of this show?
Nobody pins me. Nobody. I've never.
How about Old Man Al?
Old Man Al will try. He won't pin me. He'll bite me or pounce on me, but he won't pin me. But yeah, the Feats of Strength, the Festivus for the rest of us. So we're gonna air our grievances on Philly sports, and we're gonna talk about the feats of strength that have happened in Philly sports this past year. Obviously, we got a big Sixers-Hawks game tonight. COVID wrecking havoc with that game. Some new rules in the NBA. I want to talk a little bit about the rule changes. Then it's not going to end. Festivus hasn't ended, Drew, in like 20 years in my household because no one's pinned me yet. So, you know, I know you're a boxer, but there's no boxing in Festivus. It's wrestling. I'm the wrestler. All right? That's what I do. I could take you down and I could pin you. So we're going to talk that stuff. We're going to talk the Sixers and the Hawks preview a little bit. We're going to get a little into the Eagles-Giants game this week. because COVID's now rearing its ugly head with the Eagles now. So we're going to talk a lot of things, and I actually want to start there. Obviously, we got Eagles Giants, and the news. I mean, I know Landon Dickerson was placed on the COVID list right before the game on Tuesday night, but now it's come out that Nick Sirianni is on the COVID list. A few other offensive linemen, backups, and stuff like that have been added as well. But Nick Sirianni going on the COVID list. We've seen a few head coaches in the NFL go on COVID lists. Do you think it's a big deal in today's day and age to not have your head coach on the sideline, even though he can remotely help coach from virtually and stuff like that? Do you think it's that big of a deal not having him around? And obviously, I mean, he's vaccinated, so there is a chance he clears the new protocols the NFL have put in place. Do you think it's a big deal?
I think it's absolutely a big deal. I mean, especially the fact that this whole staff is pretty much, fairly new. I mean, besides Jeff Stoutland and maybe a couple other guys, like for most part, this whole entire coaching staff is young and, new to the system. So I think taking Sirianni out at this time, especially with kind of the momentum that we just had, pulling off a great win, by the way, after a bye. Obviously, I didn't get to talk about it, but I think Sirianni has done. It's crazy because in my mind, after week 4, I was ready to ship him the hell out of here. Absolutely. And he's basically done a 360, and he's really showing a lot of growth. And it kind of, in a weird way, even though Doug Peterson had a lot more experience than Sirianni, Doug was still a new coach. And this kind of reminds me of Doug Peterson in a crazy way. I know that team didn't, only finished with 6 or 7 wins his first year, but it kind of has the same feel to me where, we were kind of bashing Peterson, but towards the end of that season, he was kind of making better decisions and you could see growth in the team. So for that reason, it's kind of like it's the same to me. Has that same feel.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, so if Nick Sirianni does not coach, they're saying passing game coordinator Kevin Patullo will be the head coach for the game, and that offense coordinator Shane Steichen will call the plays. I do know that Shane Steichen has called plays in the past with the Chargers. He actually was a very heavy run play caller when he was with the Chargers. When he was with the Chargers, they had Austin Eckler. They still had Melvin Gordon, so they had a really good 1-2 run punch, kind of similar like what the Eagles have with Miles Sanders and Jordan Howard now. So I really don't think Shane Steichen calling the plays per se will make a major difference. But yeah, missing your head coach, missing the guy that's your leader and your emotional leader on the sidelines, definitely can play a factor. But now with the new protocols and new rules in place, where you don't have to test negative twice, you don't have to sit out for 10, like the way they're changing the rules so that we don't have more situations like we did in Washington or with Washington and Philly this past week. Getting to that point where we talked about last week, learning to live with it and around it versus, letting it affect our daily lives. I think that's where we're getting to the point now with these new rules.
Well, I have a bigger question because you're bringing up a good point with the new rules. Now, here's my question. What happens if all of a sudden today and tomorrow, 14 or 15 of our guys test positive? Are they going to do the same thing for us? Are they going to provide us the same service and move the game? Or are we going to be screwed and have to play Sunday? And then we're going to actually have a legitimate, we already had a legitimate gripe, but as fans, are we going to actually be able to say, see, told you so, it was the Eagles and it was different? Because that's the way I have a weird feeling that that's how this is going.
Your head coach caught COVID and he's legit symptomatic and stuff like that. He's been on the sideline. He said he came down Wednesday morning with symptoms. That means it was already in the system Tuesday, maybe even Monday. He was around all his coaches and all his players. You saw him in Jalen Hurts' face on the sideline, ripping him after the fumble, stuff like that. But I do want to say on the other end, so there's a really strong chance that there could be a major outbreak on the Eagles. Absolutely. I get what you're saying. And, how will the NFL handle it considering they just, made those changes for Washington? But there was a report coming out Sunday or Monday about how the Eagles have been now for about a week or so taking extra precautions in the locker room, extra sanitation, extra separation, masks 110% everywhere you go. They've been being, extra precautious so that if somebody gets it, it's not a widespread breakout. Will that work or not? I have no idea, but that seems to be, what at least some hope for it to be a not a total widespread outbreak like Washington had.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I guess I'm just playing devil's
No, I
advocate.
get what you're saying. I didn't know about the extra precautions. I brought it up on my show yesterday, Trending for Four Quarters last night, and one of the guests I had on, I believe it was Mark, was bringing up the fact that he read the report that there was they've been taking extra precautions for about a week now. It doesn't mean it's going to solve the problem. It doesn't mean it's not going to happen. But yeah, I agree with you. What does the NFL do if the NFL and the NBA hates Philly? Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Yeah, it'll be curious to see if there is a widespread outbreak, what the league does, because if the Eagles are without 18 guys, I mean, we should still beat the Giants, especially if they start Jake Fromm. But it's Jake Fromm, State Farm is not an NFL starting quarterback yet.
My goodness, how bad are the Giants?
Yeah, I mean, you got a State Farm representative as your starting quarterback probably on Sunday.
Oh my God. Yeah, we sometimes, like, Philly fans, we're very critical of our team, and we a lot of times we like to complain. But you got to admit, like, looking at these two teams on paper, it's just like night and day. I mean, as bad as we think we have it as Eagles fans, like, it could be worse. We could be the Giants. Let's just put it that way.
That's got to be one of the most dysfunctional franchises there is in all of sports, not just in Philly, in the NFL, but in all of sports. And what's crazy is I know they got two football teams, two basketball. They literally have two teams in every sport in New York, but there's at least one in all the leagues. You got the Mets are dysfunctional, the Giants are dysfunctional, the Jets are dysfunctional. There's a lot of dysfunction, and the Knicks are semi-dysfunctional. There's a lot of dysfunction in New York sports, considering they have 8 franchises in their city. It's pretty crazy.
Absolutely. Like, I'm glad we're in Philly, right? when you put it that way, break it down.
Real quick, right before the show, I texted him and I forgot to shout him out at the beginning of the show. It is my brother Willie's birthday today, so happy birthday! I know 99% likely if we're talking football, he's not watching. We will talk a little basketball, so if he tunes in, happy birthday to my older brother. He is 47 years young today. Makes me feel old knowing my older brother is almost 50. It means I'm just right behind him to hit that 50 plateau. So happy birthday, Willie. Hope you have a great day, and hopefully all your kids and family take great care of you today. Us Christmas babies, we get neglected. And the other siblings, they all got all their October and June birthdays and stuff like that. They got all the presents. Us Christmas babies, we got gypped all year long.
Always getting gypped.
Absolutely. So anyway, back to the topic. So Eagles play the Giants. If we don't have a widespread outbreak, if we're relatively healthy going into the game, I mean, we don't have to get into the X's and O's in detail because obviously the Giants are a disaster and a dumpster fire right now. Is there any situation that you could see that the Eagles don't win against the Giants, even though they just beat us a few weeks ago, 13-6?
Not if they play like they did this past Tuesday.
Right.
I don't see any way that they come out, obviously in the beginning of Tuesday's game against the, football team, they somewhat were, sloppy, and you could tell, obviously Jalen had been, actually off, I believe, 23 days since his last game. So there was a little bit of rust there, but once they got fired up and you saw after Nick Sirianni chewed out Jalen Hurts, after the fumble, from that point forward, like, he was like possessed. Like, you could just tell he took it to a different level. And it's crazy because, we had talked about it on the show, a lot of this stuff. Like Scotty had said, he kind of felt like this was going to be a game where Jalen Hurts actually I don't want to say silence the critics, but like this was going to be a game. If there was going to be any game where Jalen kind of stepped up, it was going to be now. Like after he was kind of hurt, and then he had to watch, Gardner Minshew actually have some success with the passing game. And it's crazy because we were complaining all year like how Dallas Goedert wasn't getting the ball, and was it Jalen Hurts' fault and all of a sudden, Dallas Goedert had another huge game. So I was excited to see that. I mean, there's a lot of good that came out of that game. So piggybacking from that, I don't see the Eagles coming out and laying an egg against the Giants this time around. I think the Eagles know, I think in their mind, they know this is ours for the taking. Like, we can make the playoffs. Like, all we have to do is take care of our business. And I don't see the Giants being, to me, the Giants are worse than Washington, even with Washington being not full strength.
I could agree with that.
I don't see, unless we beat ourselves, because that was what I was saying in that game. I was like, the only way the Eagles are going to lose this game is exactly what happened in the first quarter, where they were down 10-0 because, obviously the first interception, that was a fluke. I mean, and sometimes those are the kind of plays that actually hurt your team and kind of propel you into a downward spiral. So even though it was a fluke, it was still bad. And then, of course, Jalen comes back and has the fumble. So at that point, we're all thinking like, oh, here we go. You know what I mean?
It's all happening all over again. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So that to me is really the only way we're going to lose the game is if we beat ourselves. So, if we come out and we're not winning the ball.
Is it out of line to say that even though that was just a few games ago, that we are, 2 games and a bye week since then, that we're a different team now than we were, 4 weeks ago when we lost to the Giants? It was a wake-up call, like you said, but also, it was kind of like, I don't know, there's just a different – I mean, I don't want to say it's Gardner Minshew's fault, but Gardner Minshew coming in, showing Nick Sirianni that you could still run the game and still stretch the field. Then this past week against Washington, or a couple of days ago against Washington, they did run the ball heavy like they did before, but they also, threw the ball a little bit downfield and fairly, confidently. You take those 2 mistakes early of the game out, the interception, the fumble. But this is, I know it's Washington, a COVID-stricken team, and the Jets, an awful team. But it almost seems like there's a different swagger around the team the last 2 games. And I can't put my finger on why, but it almost would be like, we thought, like the team thought they were better than they were. They kind of got, smacked in the face by the Giants, that little disappointment, and it embarrassed them. So it almost seems like they're playing with a little different of a swagger now. And I'm not saying that's going to take them to like deep into the playoffs or anything like that. But I think this team going against the Giants is different than the last team going against the Giants. And they're not going to let themselves get that embarrassment, happen to them. And I don't know why, but I just think there's a little bit of a difference there. And that embarrassment won't happen this week. I'm not saying we're going to go out and win 40-0, but there should be no problem with them coming out there and comfortably winning this game on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, there's absolutely a difference. And you can point to one player in my mind. There's one player on this team that I can point to that you can just say, wow, there is a difference. And that's Fletcher Cox.
Yeah,
Fletcher Cox was like basically non-existent. I mean, I've been his harshest critic, obviously, and rightfully so. I mean, the guy's the highest paid player on the team. And the way he was playing, and I get it, it's not about the sacks. But I don't want to say the Fletcher Cox of old, but I saw a hungry Fletcher Cox. I saw Fletcher Cox, all over the field, like making plays. Obviously, he had 1.5 sacks, so he did get home to the quarterback.
He had 4
quarterbacks. I just saw, and then they kind of panned to the sideline at one point towards the end of the game, and I saw him smiling. And you know what, dude? I haven't seen that smile in like forever.
Yeah.
So that to me, when I see that, I'm saying, you know what? There is something different about this team. Like, I think that they're actually having fun again. And I think that's what it was. I think a lot of it was because Nick Sirianni is like, I think everyone was uptight because there was, the team was struggling. And it seems like ever since Sirianni just said, screw it, we're going to go with what works and run the ball. It seems like since that point, this team has been different. But you're right. Even in that little 3-game stretch from the last Giants game, they've kind of went to another level. And it's not just the confidence that you're talking about, but I see a team that's playing, they're not tight. They're playing loose. They're just having fun again. And I love that, because when you see that to me is a lot of the times why teams struggle. I think that's part of Arizona's problem. Like, I was watching that a little bit of the game, and Kyler Murray just looks like miserable and like pissed off. And like, it just doesn't look like they're having fun. And a lot of times just that element can take a team that has talent on paper and make it, I don't want to say dysfunctional, but make it not succeed, because you're not playing the game. You're playing not to lose, so to speak.
Yeah, that's fair. Very fair. So then, I won't have you on tomorrow. I got the great Ashley Woods coming on tomorrow for Football Friday while you're working. Do you have a prediction for Sunday's game against the Giants? Let me get that out of the way here. How do you see the game? How's the game theory? How's the game plan going to work out? And how's it going to unfold on Sunday at 1:00 when we're sitting down watching the game?
Well, since I nailed my prediction on this previous game, 27-17, absolutely got it right on the spot on the news. I'm going to say Eagles are going to win this one, and it's going to be 28-10.
28-10. Does that matter whether Mike Glennon or Jake from State Farm is starting?
Either one. They're both.
It doesn't matter. 10
they're
points.
Both terrible.
I think if it's Jake Fromm, it could be less than 10 points if the Giants score. Maybe not. Maybe I see the Giants getting a few field goals.
A 9.
Yeah, George brings up a great point, and and it's very fair. The level of opponent helps you have fun as well. It helps when your team is decimated by injuries or COVID. It helps when your team you're playing is the Jets or the Giants. I get that, but you still have to beat the team in front of you. You can only make your playoff run by beating the teams in front of you, controlling your own destiny. We saw that they lost to the Giants. They should have won that game, and that may come back and bite them. Down the stretch here, losing that game, but. The other games, the Jets in Washington, they needed to win them. They should have won them, and they did win them. So, level of opponent is a factor, but you still got to win those games.
I agree. I mean, I think Eagles win the game fairly easy, and they're one step closer, obviously, to making the playoffs. Obviously, a lot is going to have to happen. Still, I mean, you got to have these other teams, like the Vikings and the Saints, they got to lose. But I think it's there. If we take care of our business and you win out, let's just put it this way. I would not want to be anybody in the NFC and have to go up against the Eagles in the first round of the playoffs with the Eagles running game the way it's running. Because let's face it, it's not going away. When you've done this 7 games in a row, they're not going to all of a sudden just get shut down. I mean, they're running against teams that were actually pretty good against the run, too. It's not just, yes, it's bad level opponents. I get it. But we are.
Yeah, George brought up a point on Twitter, last night or this morning. I forget when he did it. It also helps that we're winning those. We're not falling behind 21-0 or something like that. Go up against the Rams or the Green Bay Packers in the first round of the playoffs. Those teams could easily come out. We struggle early on in football games. This past game against Washington, we were down 10-0 early because of 2 turnovers. If that's Aaron Rodgers and the Packers, that's 14-0. We could be down 17-0 in a blink of an eye against teams like that. And that's a fair point. So then the running game disappears, and then it all goes on Jalen Hurts' shoulder. So we'll see whether that theory of the run won't go away. And that could dominate in the playoffs. It could, but our defense needs to step. I mean, our defense has played well the last 2 weeks against a poor level of opponents. But I want to see how the defense performs against the higher standard opponents before I, say that, teams are fearing our running game, because outside of our running attack, nothing else is super elite on the team yet.
Oh yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, you could tell. I'm not saying that they would win. I'm just saying that I think having that type of running game makes you lethal when it's cold.
Absolutely.
In cold weather.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, if they have to play in a dome, it's not going to matter. But even so, when you can run the football, you can win close games. When you can't run the football, especially with the Eagles situation, Jalen Hurts. Like, listen, I'm still not ready. Like, it was one game. Like let's face it, Jalen Hurts has a lot more to do to prove that he's the guy still.
Absolutely.
Let's make that known. Like, I'm not ready to sit here and be like, oh yeah, like, because I see people out there saying, oh, see, told you so, and it's like one game, like, and it was Washington football team. So we need to see a lot more of that.
YouTubers and content creators, like, we try to do a pretty fair breakdown and discussion of the game. We try to look at all aspects. Seeing people out there saying, well, if we played the way we did against Washington, we wouldn't have been 2-5 to start the season. We would have been 5-1 or 4-2. Yeah. Come on, get that crap out of here. There's no way.
It's easy to play Monday morning quarterback.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And the people out there that still think that this team is, should have been capable of winning 12 or 13 games. Get that out of here. I don't buy that. But you've got a golden opportunity in front of you right now as an Eagles fan or as the Eagles team. You got an easy schedule here. Making the playoffs was not an expectation, but it's now a reality. And that playoff experience can go a long way, not just to young players, but to a young coaching staff who seemingly at this point now being 7-7, I know we talked about, Nick Sirianni very early in the season and Jonathan Gannon a lot this season about how they needed to move on from those guys. But as this team continues to progress, it's more and more likely that a majority of the coaching staff will be back next year. So a playoff experience, whether expected or not, will be huge for the coaching staff as much as the players.
Yeah, I mean, you can't teach playoff experience. It comes. You can't learn it, and you can't quantify how important that is, because if this team, listen, if you told me at the beginning of the year that the Eagles were going to make the playoffs, I would have said you were nuts. Like, I just wouldn't have seen it, because we didn't know what we had with this team. My expectations, I told you, I said 7-10. Mm-hmm. So they're already at 7 wins now, and they have the chance to beat what I said. And that, to me, just shows that this team is further along than we thought. Now, listen, it's a rebuild. We have to remember that. And a lot of people, I think, forgot about that. That's the problem. Like, there's got to be a fine line. Like, you got to remember that this team, but just because it's in a rebuild doesn't mean that they can't take the next step, especially like if they make the playoffs this year and just say they're one and done. You got that experience under your belt. Now you go out and you have 3 first-round picks next year, add a couple, good veterans. I mean, obviously, you and I both think they need a veteran wide receiver. Do that, and then all of a sudden, it's like, okay, well, now this team is a playoff team. You know what I'm saying? Like, so they're not that far off to the point where you're like, well,
7-10. I actually had them at 9-8, and I said that they would be 2-5, and then I said they would be 7-7 going into this game against the Giants.
Yes, you were right on your prediction.
I had a couple games I mispicked. Like, I had them 2-0, then 2-5. I didn't have them losing game 2, but I was spot on, and I said it was going to come down to week 18 against Dallas to get that 9th win, because I had them losing to Washington on the road and beating Washington at home. So, hypothetically speaking, I had them at 7-7 at this point. I had them beating the Giants to go to 8-7, then losing to Washington next week to go to 8-8, and then it would come down to beating Dallas. And I said 9-8 does not guarantee you a playoff spot, because I didn't realize how the parity in the NFL would play out this year, where there's going to be like 47 teams that have 9-8 records this year. But it's spot on at this point with my record prediction. I'm going to just give myself a little pat on the back, a little self high five. Hold on. A little. Got to have the sound effects mixed in there. Oh, I didn't mean to hit it again. All right. Anyway, all right. So we just talked about football there for a half hour there, and the COVID, and whether the Eagles get screwed and whatnot, stuff like that. But now we transition to the Sixers, who the NFL is changing their protocols. on how to get players back and how the testing is done. The NBA, on the other hand, is doing it differently. The NBA is changing their roster construction. The NBA is changing rules on signing players to 10-day contracts and things like that. The Sixers are obviously, they're getting hit with COVID again. It seems like the second time this year. They got hit with it last year. Danny Green was just added to the protocol list. Shake Milton, Andre Drummond, George Niang still on the list. So they got 4 guys on the COVID list right now. Atlanta is decimated. There's a chance in my mind that this game doesn't get played because if you look at it, the list of out players for the Hawks tonight, so because the Sixers play the Hawks tonight, Kevin Huerter, Lou Williams, TLC, former Sixer, Clint Capella, Danielle Gallinari, DeAndre Hunter, Solomon Hill, and Trae Young are all listed as out for tonight's game. That's a lot of guys. But what the NBA is doing is they're letting you go out and go to like the big 3 or the whatever that new 3-on-3 league is that Ice Cube or Ice T or Ice Lemonade, whatever his name is, started. And it's actually becoming a pretty big league and a really fun 3-on-3 basketball league. But you can basically go out and sign as many 10-day contracts and hardship contracts. They're calling them hardship contracts to any players. The Sixers went out and signed Tyler Johnson. He's from Miami. He played with Miami beginning of his career. Played 39 games with the Nets last year. He's only 29 years old. Hasn't played at all this year. But they just went out and signed him to a 10-day contract. And the NBA, you see 42-year-old Joe Johnson just signed a 10-day contract to come back into the league. This is their answer. Do you rather the NFL's practices of just changing the protocols to get the real players back on the field, or do you like what the NBA is doing, where now they're just letting you field any team? You're going to have basically the YMCA team out there, for certain times of the year.
I mean, it's hard for me to say. I like what the NBA is doing, but in the same token, it's like, okay, knowing that you're going to have teams like just say it's like the Sixers are at full strength or they're only missing 2 guys. They have their stars, and you're going up against Atlanta with like a bunch of nobodies. It's not going to be good for as far as the product on the court. So the fans are kind of going to get gypped off in that respect. Yes, the games aren't getting canceled, so they're going to see a game, but the home fans are not necessarily going to actually be witnessing something that they want to watch. Let's just say that. I don't know what the right answer is. I do got to say I like that both leagues are trying to do something because obviously you couldn't just sit with the status quo. I don't know. It's hard for me to answer that, like whose is better, because the NFL, what they're doing is they're kind of setting a precedent. Like, I'm just concerned in the NFL that with them doing this, that players are going to play that actually have COVID.
Yeah, well, that with NFL players and how tough they act and all.
Because if they're not testing, if you only have to have 1 negative, it could be like, couldn't it be a false net? Like, I don't know. I'm not into all the answers of this. I don't know what the right answer is, but I just know as a fan, that's going to be rough to watch some of those NBA games where there's like, if there's 10 replacement players. I mean, not that it can't be competitive. I mean, let's face it. Like, maybe there's guys that are like hidden gems that get found and then actually sign a longer contract. So
somebody like Tyler Johnson that the Sixers signed. I mean, he's a 36% career 3-point shooter in his like 6 or 7 years in the league. He's only 29 years old. He's a shooting guard, power point guard kind of combo. He's basically a left-handed scorer. He can knock down a shot. He's a guy looking for another opportunity, and this 10-day contract is another opportunity for him. Joe Johnson's kind of funny, him being brought back. I mean, he's 40. I think he's 42. He's not expecting a new like revival of his career. He's just looking for one more little ride off into the sunset, before Father Time catches up to him. But, it's also an opportunity for some of these guys to get another payday. I don't know what the NBA 10-day contract, financials, are, but some of these guys are getting another paycheck, and that's big for them as well. So, there's lots of positives with the way the NBA is doing it. But on the game itself, if the game is played tonight, I know the Sixers have 4 guys in health and safety protocols right now. But with the amount of guys that the Hawks have out, if this game is played, the fact that Joel Embiid, Seth Curry, Tyrese Maxey has been removed from the injured list with his quad issue, so he'll be playing. Matisse Thybulle still playing. You'll have some of the guys from the G League. Just having Joel Embiid, Curry, Matisse, and Tobias Harris versus the Hawks not having Trae Young, Kevin Huerter, and like 90% of their team. If the Sixers don't win this game by double digits, man, tomorrow morning I'm gonna be lit on this show. Even though tomorrow's Football Friday, I am going to be going off on the Sixers if they somehow find a way to lose this game against the Hawks tonight.
Yeah, that won't be overreaction.
I'll be underreacting. Even though I'll be loud and obnoxious, I'll still be underreacting to an extent because there's no way you could put any G League squad out there, but put Joel Embiid on that G League squad, they should beat any team there. That's basically putting another G League squad out there. It would be really, really unfortunate if the Sixers did not win. And they've beaten the Hawks twice this year already. So this is their third matchup against the Hawks this season. So I mean, it's a little bit of a little bonus after the way they knocked us out of the playoffs last year. To get a few wins against them. It doesn't matter really big picture because they still beat us in the playoffs. But it loops us around. It's a great way to start with the Festivus and the airing of grievances with Philly sports. And the Sixers are obviously shorthanded massively right now. And I want to continue to air my grievances with Ben Simmons. Get your ass on the court, Ben Simmons. You're not getting traded yet. You should be traded by now, but you're not. You have an opportunity again, just like when we were on the West Coast trip, a month or so back, and we had a bunch of guys, Tobias, Joel, Matisse, all on the COVID list. You could have helped your team and helped your reputation around the league. This is another opportunity. Ben Simmons could just show up and be like, yo, I'm going to keep my mouth shut. I'm just going to come out and do what I do. Maybe it helps me get traded. Maybe it helps us win a few games, whatever, but my bad. Let's just go play some ball. And we would have to welcome them back with open arms because we're that shorthanded. So my biggest grievance in Philly sports is the way Ben Simmons and his agent, Rich Paul, has handled the situation because there's now the third or fourth opportunity that he could come back and, work on his reputation, but also make a difference to his team who tried to welcome him back with open arms at the beginning of the season. And he just turned a blind eye to him. My biggest thing that pisses me off in Philly sports right now is the whole situation. I think the Ben Simmons situation, the way it's played out, has frustrated and pissed me off more than the Carson Wentz situation. And I know I was a Carson Wentz fan, but I was a Ben Simmons fan too. I said from day one, don't trade Ben Simmons, this, that, and the third before this year. I thought we could win a title with Ben Simmons, on this team with next to Joel Embiid. But I'm more pissed off and more frustrated with Ben Simmons, I think, than any athlete in Philly sports history almost. So my biggest grievance I have is with Ben Simmons.
Wow. I mean, I can't argue with you. That's like it's probably on 90% of the population in Philly's list of at being at the top of grievance. That's a good one. I don't know if I could beat that, but I have my list of grievances.
I mean, I would say my guess would be your grievances would be with Chuck Fletcher and the Flyers.
Well, you're close. So my grievance isn't not against any players, but my grievances is against two of the four franchises, ownership and leadership groups. And that would be the Philadelphia Flyers and the Philadelphia Phillies.
Yep, absolutely.
I am so sick and tired of the same nonsense year after year from both of these groups. Both teams have not done anything or been relevant. Phillies haven't been relevant since 2011. Flyers haven't been relevant since 2010. So you're going on over 10 years of being irrelevant in the league. Both ownership groups like to preach how they want to win. They both come out and say that, oh, we're willing to spend money. In John Middleton's case, it was spending stupid money. They both say and try to, play the company role like that. We're in this and we want to do well. But when you look at it from behind the scenes and you look at it from a fan's perspective, it's all just bullshit because both of these organizations are doing something wrong, and it's obvious. None of them, if they really wanted to win, like let's see, like I said, I'm willing to give John Middleton another chance at this point, but this is it. Like if he doesn't come out after this collective bargaining agreement is done, which by the way is pissing me off too. That's my grievance.
That's my next grievance
against Major League Baseball.
Rob Manfred's on my grievance list because letting the last meeting before the lockout last 7 minutes, not trying to talk or negotiate one bit. Not one bit. That's my biggest grievance right there with baseball in general, is that the player, I forget the guy's name that was leading the negotiations for the Players Association, but Rod Manfred, the commissioner there of Major League Baseball, letting that happen, just walking out after 7 minutes and going right into a lockout. Come on now. You got to do better. Baseball can't afford to miss games, and baseball can't afford to, lose any more revenue or fans right now. Come on, you got to do better than 7 minutes of negotiating right there. That pisses me off.
Absolutely. I mean, dude, the optics of it are ridiculous. They went out and you had all these teams spend billions of dollars, like all this money, and then all of a sudden you go on, you have a lockout like right after that. Like, how does that look to everybody? Like, all these guys got money, and now the guy, like, could you imagine being Max Scherzer, who you just went and signed that contract, but yet you're representing the players of Major League Baseball, and you kind of have to, play the union role of, we need a lockout.
Right.
But yeah, you're right. They're right up there too. And, just kind of going back to my original.
Sorry, you kind of made me think of Rob Manfred there.
No, it's fine. No, it's fine. It's just the Phillies and Flyers to me have to do better. They're both, I would say, frauds in my mind. Because like I said, they sit here and they preach all to the choir that we're spending money. We are. Yeah, yes, you are. Phillies brought in Bryce Harper. Phillies have brought in some good players, but they're not doing everything it takes to win. And in baseball, there isn't a set salary cap, so you can go over the tax. The problem is John Middleton hasn't, nor does he want to. And that, to me, just shows how much of a fraud he is, because he was the one that said, let's spend stupid money. I'm willing to spend stupid money to win. Well, then put your money where your mouth is, Bob, because you're not going over the tax. And if you're not set up like other teams are in your farm system, then the only way to get better is to spend money. So I don't want to hear it. I'm tired of hearing the people, the stands that come out and say, no, the Phillies are doing things. They are. No, they're not. No, they're not. They're not. They're not. The Phillies are farther from competing now than they were in 2011. Yeah. And that's a major travesty.
And that's you have an MVP on your team in Bryce Harper. You also have the second place Cy Young winner, in Zach Wheeler. So you've got basically a perennial MVP and Cy Young winner on your team, and you're further away than you were in 2011. That's really telling that statement right there.
It's disgusting. And the Flyers are no better. The Flyers are actually worse because the Flyers don't have a Bryce Harper. The Flyers don't have a Zach Wheeler. The Flyers are a middling team, and they were going to be a middling team until they can get better with drafting. And unfortunately, I mean, my hope is that the Flyers kind of tank and lose and get a high first-round pick in a year where it's a generational player is coming out. Because that, to me, is the only way that this team's going to get fixed. Right. They're just so frustrating. I've been saying it, and that's why we haven't had many Flyer shows lately, as even with the coaching change, and they won a couple games, and now the season's on hold. So, yeah. But that's my grievances. Yes,
I got more grievances to air. I mean, I've got a few feats of strength that I want to talk about. But again, we're doing our Festivus. My Festivus poll is here. Ready for the happy Festivus for the rest of us day to day. I'm making a donation to the Human Fund today. Only Seinfeld fans get that reference, but the Human Fund, because I need money. So another thing that I've got to air my grievances with, and I'm not. I don't like bullying. I'm not talking about bullying in this situation, but again, it happened this week. It was Mr. Booby, Mr. Miles Sanders, calling out the fans for booing. It pisses me off when players say stop booing us. It really does. You know, so many players come to Philly and then complain about the fans. And you know what? If you don't like it, go play somewhere else where the fans don't care, and you'll see how you'll miss Philadelphia. Because your fans, it's not booing because they're mean or whatever. Yes, there are the select few that are bullying and taking it too far, but 95% of the fans that boo are booing because of passion. They want more. They're trying to motivate you to be better. Someone like Jalen Hurts gets booed, he comes out and plays 10 times better. But the guys that come out and say, stop booing us, we don't want to be booed, we're whatever. No, that's the right of the fan to boo a poor performance. And it happens all the time, whether it's players calling out the Philly fans or their families calling out the Philly fans. I know Jalen Reagor's dad's always calling out fans for talking about his son. And yes, you can only take it so far. But booing at a game that I paid hard-earned money for because I'm not happy with the performance, that's the right of me as a fan. And I really hate it when players, jump all over fans for that.
Yeah, I mean, that's actually really disappointing to me because I actually love Miles Sanders. And for him to come out and say that just shows you the problem, though, with I say like a lot of these athletes of today's world, the mentality of like being entitled.
Right.
Because the problem is that a lot of times when you're entitled, you won't see the good in the fact of exactly what you just said. The fact that go to another city and find out how it feels where fans don't give a shit.
Right.
But players that really do get it, guys like Brian Dawkins, Bryce Harper, guys that have embraced the booing and basically it's made them better players. Like that's what, to me, the sign of it, an athlete that actually gets it, as opposed to somebody that's just, I don't want to say collecting a paycheck, but I think it's just a difference in mentality. Some people get it and some people just never will.
Absolutely.
And you're right. There is a fine line. I don't agree with the bullying. I think people went way out of line with Reagor as far as like, going on his social media, saying that they wish bad things on him. That's not okay. But just booing a player at a game, that's bullshit. Like, Miles, like we're allowed to boo. If you don't want us to boo, do better. Like if you noticed the last couple of games, he's run for 100 and some yards. We really haven't booed him. So for that statement to come out, that was a weird time to me for him to make that.
There was some booing going on at the Eagles game after the first 2 turnovers, and we were down 10-0. There was some booing, and guess what happened after that?
Exactly.
They went and scored 20 straight unanswered points and took over the game, and the crowd was cheering like crazy. So you know what? It is a motivating factor. Use it to motivate yourself. Don't call the fans out. It just pisses me off. It really does.
Yeah, that's bad. That really was bad. Yeah, I saw that yesterday. I'm like, oh, this isn't going to end well.
No, not at all. Not at all. Do you have any other grievances before we move on to the feats of strength?
No, I mean, I think I said my piece. Like, I don't really have a problem with any athletes in this town right now. I've just, obviously some that I wish would do better. But most of my, I think I hit it on the head. Like, Phillies and Flyers organizations right now.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. Okay, so the feats of strength. So normally in Festivus, my Festivus poll right here. Today's Festivus. The feats of strength is the end of the Festivus holiday. You have to pin the head of the household to end the holiday. You've got to pin them down. There's a lot of fighting and scrumming going on. But I'm going to you can't really have a fight live on air when we're remote and different broadcasts.
You're duking it out.
Hold on. Yeah, I got a new sound effect there, little boxing sound effect there. We can't really have a feats of strength fight live on the air here. So we're gonna kind of twist it and tweak it a little bit. So my feats of strength, I want to talk about Philadelphia athletes or Philadelphia sports teams or anything, just like we just talked commish, owners, players here with the airing of grievances. I want to talk about players and the same situation, but in the opposite end, that are going above and beyond to play hero ball and stuff like that. Obviously Bryce Harper, after his okay first half, he played hero ball. He put the Phillies on his back and played at an MVP caliber. That was a feat of strength right there. The second half of the season that Bryce Harper had. And I know it was all thanks to you, Jason. So, hold on.
You need a sound effect for that.
So
that's
so
why
that,
you were going to do that.
What I want to talk about as feats of strength. So, I mean, I would assume that Bryce Harper would be one of your feats of strength this year.
Oh, absolutely. Bryce Harper, the guy thought like the polar opposite. He's a guy that gets it. Like, he's embraced the city. We've booed Bryce Harper plenty of times. And you know what? He never came out and said, guys, you shouldn't boo me. You know what he did? He just got better. He ignored that noise, and he used it as a motivating factor for his play on the field, because he's a guy that realizes that if you do embrace that and you play the way that Philly likes to see, we'll always love you. And he knows, you could talk to anybody that's won a championship in this town. They always mention it, that once you win, we would buy you free. You could be at a bar and we'd buy you a beer forever for your entire life. I mean, if Nick Foles came back to the bar and you were sitting there next to him, you'd be giving that guy major love, because it's just. And Nick Foles isn't a star player, but Nick Foles happened to win a Super Bowl in a town that was, our first Super Bowl. So yes, I agree. Bryce Harper's definitely would be on that list. I think I would put the Philadelphia Union as a whole team on that list.
Fantastic, feat of strength right there. I love that call from you there.
Yeah, I mean, I know they didn't win, but they made it pretty far, and I'm very proud of what they did for the city. And not enough people talk about the Philadelphia. I know it's not one of the four major sports, but
we're not a 4 for 4 anymore. We're a 5 for 5.
Exactly. And I know, obviously I don't know much about soccer. I've never played it. My best friend, Aaron, my partner on Sports and Metal, his son is a extremely good soccer athlete, and he's always sending me videos of it, and it's fun to watch. Just watching those videos, it's just cool to see a different element, something that I'm not really used to. And I definitely give a lot of credit to soccer athletes, because in my mind, they're probably the best athletes out there, because they're constantly running. There's no downtime. Think about that. It's very, it's a very,
cardio is intense.
Very athletic sport. And, I know Parcero would, if he was on, he would definitely be saying Union. So
yeah,
shout out to them, and shout out to Parcero.
No, that's a fantastic pull right there. I just suggested Bryce Harper. He wasn't my feats of strength. Actually, I think my real true feats of strength guy, if he was actually at a Festivus party, no one would ever pin him, because first off, the guy almost retired, and he's still playing at a Pro Bowl. Well,
I knew you were going to say.
Bowl. He's playing at an All-Pro Hall of Fame level at this point in his career. Jason Kelce, he's literally a feats of strength master. I guarantee he actually looks like a guy like George Costanza's dad and Simon that would just sit there at the Festivus table, air his grievances with everybody. Everybody would accept it. And then when the feats of strength came at the end, there'd be zero chance. I mean, it would literally go on for days upon days trying to end the holiday, because no one would be able to pin that man down. But what Jason Kelce has done this year, the way he's performed, the way he's played, our nomination is Walter Payton Man of the Year. So it's not just on the field, it's off the field as well. Considering he literally came, so close to retiring again at the end of last season. I mean, it's insane what he's been able to accomplish this year. And I hope he plays for the rest of his life. I hope he never retires, because he's the embodiment of what Philadelphia is, the embodiment of what we want a Philadelphia sports athlete to be. And he wears his emotions on his sleeve so well. Jason Kelce is my number one feats of strength in Philadelphia sports at this moment.
Did you see that play?
Which one? The one with Miles Sanders?
Miles Sanders, when he ran to the left. down the sideline, and Kelsey looked like a wide receiver, dude. I was blown away. You're absolutely spot on with that. Like Jason Kelsey, another guy that gets it. Embodiment of the city, like embodiment of the hard work mentality, that work ethic, the blue collar, the blue collar aspect. Everything about Jason Kelsey is what makes Philly. So I agree. Couldn't be a better guy to have on that list. I have another guy, another Eagle that I think deserves to be on that list, and that would be Darius Slay.
Okay.
A guy that came in last year and a lot of people were down on. He wasn't really putting up numbers. And listen, let's face it, I've already said about cornerbacks. To me, it's not about the guys that have 12 interceptions that makes them the best cornerback. It's the cornerbacks that cover the best receivers and, don't get targeted because they're on that side. Those are the guys that I want on my team. And Darius Slay's been that and everything else and that much more. Like, obviously he's had 3 touchdowns, but he's been like the quarterback of that defensive unit with Brandon Graham being out. Brandon Graham was that guy. Like Brandon Graham was the guy that kind of the leader in the locker room. And now Darius Slay has kind of adapted that mentality. And I couldn't be more proud of the guy. I mean, and not just that, off the field as well. Him and his wife are just amazing people. What they do for people, like I've never seen anything like it. Like, and I know a lot of people, are saying it's trendy. No, it's not trendy. It's true. Like, it's just, if you look on Twitter, they're always giving out tickets. They're always giving shout outs to people. And it's not, it's not discriminatory. Like they just, whoever, like they don't care.
Right.
They just like to give back. And that to me means so much.
Absolutely.
And,
I actually got to go now that you bring up Darius Slay and I brought up Jason Kelsey. I do have a grievance to add as we wrap this show up.
Oh no.
Whoever voted for the Pro Bowl, the fact that I know we're only a 7-17. Darius Slay and Jason Kelsey, very deserving of Pro Bowl nods. But I kind of feel like we had quite a few snubs, especially Jordan Mailata. So whoever's out there voting for Pro Bowl, the fact that Jordan Mailata didn't get on, he didn't even get named to an alternate spot. That to me, Jalen Hurts got nominated for an alternate spot. No, whoever voted and kept Jordan Mailata's name off there, that I have a major grievance with, Jared. Just an FYI.
That's criminal.
It is criminal, yeah. I mean, he's had a fantastic season. He cemented himself as one of the best offensive linemen in football, one of the best left tackles in football. And and not even naming him an alternate, let alone he should have been voted straight up to the team, but not naming him an alternate. Come on now, that's some bogus things right there. And talk about Feats. Just if I said no one's going to pin Jason Kelsey at the end of Festivus, the only person that I could see pinning Jason Kelsey to end Festivus is Jordan Mailata. Yeah, I would love to see that one-on-one wrestling sumo bout between Kelsey and Mailata. That would be some interesting battles right there for sure.
That'd be must-see TV.
Absolutely. All right, so this was trending in the AM here on DSM Media. As always, live, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Twitch. Make sure you're subscribing and following. Make sure you're following my man Jason at Mustang3651 and me on Twitter at Beard and Knowledge. Tomorrow morning, I'll be joined by the very talented, underappreciated Ashley Woods. Not only is she a student down at the University of Alabama, she does work with the Bell and Birds podcast. She does work with Francisco Rojas, who I had on a few weeks ago. She's a huge football fan, huge Eagles fan. She also loves her college football. So we're going to do Football Friday tomorrow with her. We're going to get all her opinions on the Eagles-Giants game, the NFL parody, and also we're going to touch on some college football. As an Alabama student, Alabama being in the college playoffs, I'm going to get her opinions on the playoffs and how it's all going to play out. So make sure you're tapped in tomorrow morning at 8:30 a.m. for that great episode. And Jason, this is the last time we're on the air before Christmas. So I got to wish you a very, very Merry Christmas and thank you for filling in and doing such a great job as my part-time co-host on Trending the AM. If I had a present, I would give you one, but I don't. So here, this is all I'm going to give you. Yeah, that's it. That's all you get there, brother.
I love that gift, dude. It means a lot. No, thank you for the kind words, and Merry Christmas to you and your wife and your family. And I know next couple days are going to be crazy for anybody that works retail. Obviously, you own a pizza shop. I manage a supermarket, so the next couple days.
You know how many people call my shop yesterday and the day before, and probably will today, asking if I'm open on Christmas? No, I'm sorry. I'm open every day of the year. I am not open on Christmas. Come on now. Yeah, got to have at least one day, one holiday where we do not work.
Yeah, so it's gonna be insane for us. But I guess if I had to give a message out there to all the folks, and once again, thanks for being tapped into DSM Media as DSM goes to the moon, and 2022 is going to be huge for DSM. So glad that you guys watch and follow these shows. It means a lot to us, and I know I'm speaking for Phil, but I'm sure he would second it. That
it doesn't mean anything to me.
We wouldn't be here, if it wasn't for you guys. So if I can leave a couple parting words, please be kind and love everybody. Be nice.
That is the perfect way to play off the show. And I'll just emphasize: be kind to your retail workers. Do not yell at them when you can't find something in the food store. Do not yell at them when their pizza takes 10 minutes instead of 5 minutes. Be kind to your retail workers out there, because they're working the holidays so that you can enjoy them, especially on Christmas Eve. So everybody have a very Merry Christmas. Well, I'll wish you guys all a Merry Christmas tomorrow when we're live on the air at 8:30 a.m. But Jason, again, Merry Christmas, my friend. And I will see you back here next week, Jason.
Absolutely.
Go